بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل فينا ولا بيننا شقيا ولا محروما. اللهم إنا نسألك من الخير كله عاجله وآجله ما علمنا منه وما لم نعلم، ونعوذ بك من الشر كله عاجله وآجله ما علمنا منه وما لم نعلم. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من البرص والجنون والجذام وسيء الأسقام. تحصنا بذي العزة والجبروت واعتصمنا برب الملكوت وتوكلنا على الحي الذي لا يموت. اصرف عنا الأذى يا رب، إنك على كل شيء قدير وبالإجابة جدير. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we praise him and we ask him for help and guidance. He or she who is guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not be taken astray by anyone. And he or she who is allowed by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be misguided cannot and will not be brought back to guidance by anyone on the face of this earth. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Almighty God, I ask you to expand my chest with ease and make our task easy so that inshallah we'll come out of this webinar, this live stream with the benefits that are pleasing to you, Ya Allah. So as you can tell from the title, we want to talk about how to observe Ramadan under these circumstances. And the way I'm going to conduct this live stream is, first I want to talk about the significance of Ramadan. What is Ramadan? And then I want to talk about some general questions related to Ramadan. And then I will try to focus on practicing those aspects under these circumstances that we are familiar with. So it's three segments. First, the significance. Then I will talk about Ramadan and fasting in general. And then we will focus on the COVID-19 pandemic and how to observe Ramadan in these days. Salman al-Farisi, who is one of the great companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, witnessed one last night of Sha'ban, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam standing to deliver the glad tidings of the coming of the month of Ramadan, and people were gathered around him as reported by Ibn Khuzaymah. And Salman al-Farisi said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam addressed the people and he said to them, allow me please, to say it first in the Quranic language, and then I will translate, inshallah. I will not make it long so that everybody will understand equally. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Ya ayyuhan nas, innahu qad adhallakum shahrun azimun mubarak. Shahrun fihi laylatun hiya khayrun min alfi shahr. جعل الله صيام نهاره فريضة وقيام ليله تطوعا. من تقرب فيه من الله بخصلة من خصال الخير كان كمن أدى فريضة فيما سواه، ومن أدى فيه فريضة كان كمن أدى 70 فريضة فيما سواه. And then he went on and on, but I would like to stop here just to, bring us to the landscape that we call Ramadan. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ stood as a khatib, and the people were earnestly listening to him, to their mentor, to their beloved Muhammad ﷺ. So he said, "O people, you are shadowed, or you are about to enter the gateway of a great month. A month therein there is one night, which is Laylatul Qadr, which is better than 1,000 months. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made fasting during its day as a farida, as an obligation, and made standing up in prayers, in salat during the night as a voluntary action. Whosoever will do something voluntary to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would consider it as a performance of an obligatory, as a fard. And whosoever will perform a farida, an obligatory action, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will multiply the reward by 70. This is the month of Ramadan. We are living therein now, the month of Ramadan. And I want now to take us to a scenario that everyone, especially young people, would love that they were in place of this young man I want to tell you about. This is a story reported by At-Tirmidhi, one of the great compilers of hadith, and it is about a young man by the name of Mu'adh ibn Jabal, a very young person. He found himself one day face to face with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, imagine if any of us will find himself alone with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you have a chance to ask a question. What would you ask? What would you ask? So Mu'adh ibn Jabal asked a question that was so simple, yet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam understood its significance. Mu'adh ibn Jabal said, "Ya Rasulullah, dullani ala amalin يدخلني الجنة ويباعدني من النار." Nothing can be simpler than that. He said, "O Messenger of Allah, guide me to something which, if I do, will get me closer to Jannah and will put a shield between me and the hellfire. I don't want to go to the hellfire. I am living my life so that I will get eventually to Jannah." But look what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Ya Mu'adh, laqad sa'alta an azim." Mu'adh, you asked a very good question. So Mu'adh felt very good. He said, "laqad sa'alta an azim, wa innahu la yasirun fi'luhu ala man yassarahu Allah alayh." Yet what I'm going to tell you will be easy to do for those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for them, which means for those who really want to learn, want to do it. They are sincere. So what did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did he give him a speech about all the things that will take him to Jannah? No. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given a quality by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he used to speak volumes in a few words. أُوتِيَ جَوَامِعَ الْكَلِمِ, as the scholars would say about him. He had that ability. So he said to him, number one, تَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُ بِهِ شَيْئًا وَتُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةَ وَتُؤْتِ الزَّكَاةَ وَتَصُومُ رَمَضَانَ وَتَحُجُّ الْبَيْتَ إِنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. So what he told them basically are the 5 pillars of Islam. Do them, abide by them, live your life accordingly, and then you'll get to Jannah. So he told them, you worship none other than Allah. You don't associate partners with him. And number 2, you establish salat in your life. You make salat part of your day, 5 times a day. These are the spiritual reminders, spiritual organizer of your day. And then he said, you give zakat. You don't just sleep on it. You understand the right of those who are mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the 8 categories that I talked about last week, those people have a right in what we have. It's not, you see, our paycheck, our savings, this is not all ours. 2.5% of that belongs to the needy, as I explained last week. And number 4, he said, you fast. You understand how to fast, the meaning of fasting. And then finally, you go for Hajj once in your lifetime if you have the capability to do so. 5 pillars of Islam. If you live by them, you will get to Jannah. And that reminds me of the story of the Bedouin who came and wanted to learn about Islam. And he said, Ya Muhammad, just like this, Ya Muhammad, tell me, what is Islam? He said, you do this, 5 pillars of Islam. He said, okay, would you like me to tell you more? He said, no. I will just do this and this suffices for me. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said about this Bedouin, he said it will take him to Jannah if he is sincere. يدخل الجنة إن كان صدق, if he is telling the truth. So now as Mu'adh ibn Jabal got his fill, got the answer for his question, he was about to leave when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, Ya Mu'adh, ألا أدلك على أبواب الخير? He didn't ask, but now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is talking more. He wants to volunteer more. And he said, Bala ya Rasulullah, what are those gateways of goodness? And here's what I want to bring us to. Now listen, he told him about 3 gateways of goodness. These are the gateways which if you will go through, you will just continue towards goodness that please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are those 3 things? He said to him, number 1, الصيام جنة والصدقة تطفئ الخطيئة كما يطفئ الماء النار وصلاة الرجل في جوف الليل. ثم تلا أي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تتجافى جنوبهم عن المضاجع يدعون ربهم خوفا وطمعا ومما رزقناهم ينفقون فلا تعلم نفس ما أخفي لهم من قرة أعين جزاء بما كانوا يعملون. These are the words from Surah Al-Sajdah that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to recite, in Salat al-Fajr every Jumu'ah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, number 1, the gateways to goodness. Fasting. It is a shield between you and evil. That's number 1. Number 2, give as much charity as you can. Don't say, I will just give zakat and I will stop. It's like someone who will say, I'm going to pray 4 raka'at dhuhr and don't ask me for anything else. Now, the 4 raka'at will be written in your book of records that you've done what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded you to do. But look, we pray 4 raka'at sunnah before, we pray 2 raka'at after, before Asr, we pray also 4 raka'at. We pray, after Maghrib, because we would like to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Would you say that, no, I want to keep my distance between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I will just do what will keep me safe. No. All of us love to get closer and closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of us would like to run towards Jannah. All of us would like to, keep compiling in our packages that we will take with us into our grave as many good deeds as possible. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, give charity. Ask about people who are in need, especially these days. Do something, and that will be another gateway to goodness. And number 3, don't forget to pray during the night, Salat al-Qiyam. I'm going to just basically put in front of you that each one of these 3 is wide open, especially in this month when we are at home living Ramadan. And I said living on purpose. Every one of them is wide open. You know why? Because now no one can say, well, my kind of job does not allow me to, no excuse. We are having it easy to, as I will start shortly to talk about the elements of fasting, we're abstaining from, this is easy. We are not putting any undue effort. So this is wide open. Number two, there are so many people now because of those circumstances who are in need. That's number two. Number three, Salat al-Qiyam. Remember what Salman al-Farisi told us about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he said that Allah made fasting during the day as a farida and to stand up in prayer during the night as a voluntary action. Now, imagine, you can sleep after Fajr if you want to spend the night in Qiyam. Salat al-Taraweeh itself, as we will talk, is called Salat al-Qiyam because any prayer you do after Salat al-Isha and before you go to sleep is called Salat al-Qiyam. Now, the difference between that and tahajjud is that tahajjud it's a technical term. If you sleep after Isha, then you get up to pray before Fajr, then it is called tahajjud. But if you continue after Salat al-Isha, before you pray witr, and you continue to pray voluntary prayers, which Salat al-Taraweeh is voluntary prayer, then it is called Salat al-Qiyam. So we can do that. Now, have you heard of the young man called Abdullah ibn Umar? I want to tell you this story very quickly. Abdullah ibn Umar used to love sleeping at night at the Masjid al-Nabawi. He used to feel so comfortable, so secure, peaceful. So one time he had a dream that he was about to get to a deep valley and overlooking that from a cliff, and he felt someone running after him about to push him into that valley over the cliff. He woke up scared. He saw that quite a few times. He got scared, so he told his sister Hafsa, the daughter of Umar ibn al-Khattab, his father, and the wife of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was so bashful to go himself and ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he asked his sister. So she went and told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, her husband, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, go and tell Abdullah to help me. Because why did he say help me? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is like our shepherd. Taking us to Jannah, leading us through the gateways of goodness. He said, go and tell your brother to help me as I'm guiding everyone to go to Jannah, to pray at night, to do Salat al-Qiyam. So Abdullah said, I never used to do Salat al-Qiyam before, but since I heard it from my beloved teacher, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our prophet, our messenger, I never missed a night without doing Salat al-Qiyam. So let us try. This is the special Ramadan. This is the special practice where we will get used to it. Inshallah, after this crisis will be over, we will continue at least, Saturday night, which is the Friday or the night that comes after Friday that is leading into Saturday. The next day is a weekend. We can do it again, Sunday night, and we can, practice this and feel the love. Because, when you are praying alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you feel close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, عَيْنَانِ لَا تَمَسُّهُمَا النَّارِ عَيْنًا بَاتَتْ تَحْرُسُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَعَيْنًا بَكَتْ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ. That two sets of eyes will never be touched by the hellfire. Eyes that were guarding in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make sure that the Muslims were secure, and eyes that cried while, feeling the love and fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you know also the hadith that Abu Hurairah narrated, 7 categories of people will be protected by the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a day when there's no other protection but His. And then one of those 7 is a person who remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and started to cry. So now let us enter through the gateways of goodness, and inshallah as we go, and if we happen to die while we are doing voluntary fasting or while we are doing fasting in Ramadan, or, you know, I want to tell you there's a hadith narrated by Sahl ibn Sa'd and reported by Bukhari. He is saying, إن للجنة بابا اسمه الريان أو يقال له الريان يدخل منه الصائمون, that there is a special gate in Jannah, out of the gates of Jannah, called Ar-Rayyan. Only fasting people have the privilege and the honor to go through it. So imagine if when we die, we are fasting and then we have that privilege. Anyway, now one thing I want to remind my brothers and sisters, I want to share with you, many of you have my book, which I wrote a long time ago, called Fasting in Islam, Principles and Practices. So I'm going to select a few things from that and expand on them and then try to cast them on our situation while we are fasting at home. And I'm looking to my right just to check the time so that we can do this quickly. Number 1 that I want to talk about is the niyyah. Every act of worship in Islam has to be started with the niyyah. Before we start salat, we make niyyah. And before we start zakat, again, there is niyyah. Don't just say, I'm going to just take whatever money and then give it to the poor, hoping that this will be enough. No. Part of the zakat is to sit down with the intention that you want to calculate your zakat. If you cannot calculate it yourself, you may ask someone, but you should have the intention that this is the task that you are doing willingly and happily, and you should feel that you are doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the niyyah for zakat. And the niyyah for fasting is to know that you are going to go through the month of Ramadan to fast this month. And here I would like to just talk about, not controversy, but the difference in opinion among scholars. And that difference is that some scholars say that you have to feel the niyyah or repeat the niyyah every day until the end of Ramadan. Others say that it suffices to make that intention at the beginning of Ramadan, and that will suffice you until the end, because فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. So those who are capable to fast the entire month, they should do that. So those scholars say that we have no option. It is our pleasure to fast the entire month, so we start at the beginning, so that suffices. Others say that in order for you to keep on invigorating and recharging your battery, you have to renew your niyyah every day. So now, because we are at home, we may actually run into a routine, God forbid, and I'll tell you how not to run into a routine. So, make it every day if you can, but if you forget one day, don't worry about it. And how do we make the niyyah? What do we say? Nothing. All acts of worship are preceded just with a feeling of that you are about to do. You don't say anything. The only act of worship that has to be verbalized for the niyyah is Umrah and Hajj. لبيك اللهم بعمرة, لبيك اللهم بحج. That we have to say, and we have to hear it and have others hear it with us as well as we start our talbiyah. But for Ramadan, something, when you wake up for suhoor or for sahri, that is your niyyah. Exactly, you are doing that because you want to start your day. So this is as far as the niyyah goes. I'm checking my notes here so that I will move, inshallah, in proper order. Now, who has to fast? Every capable person who is older than the age of puberty has to fast. And this person has to be healthy. This person has to be at home, and there is an allowance for people who are traveling to break their fast while traveling, and then they make that fast up in later days. And I will talk a little bit more in detail about traveling. However, people who are capable have to do it and listen to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, to make sure that it is not extra righteousness or taqwa or piety to fast while you are sick. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeated that twice in 2 consecutive ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah. So if you are sick, don't say, but how could I, I feel bad. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, قُلْ مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إن شكرتم وآمنتم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah An-Nisa, Allah has no interest in seeing you suffer. If you are sick, remember that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has the will that you became sick because of something that is known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't just say, no, I want to give or do Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a favor. You don't do Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a favor by fasting if you are not feeling well. وَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه. That was before, as some people, before the other ayah came to, basically remove the hukum of that. وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية. Some people say, no, I can say, I don't accept that. And the majority of the scholars say that if you are able, you just basically do your fasting. However, if you are sick, now there are 2 kinds of sickness. There is sickness that is expected to heal and that will go away. So in this case, you have to make up those days that you were sick and that you needed to fast. You make them up when you are feeling better. So that is known. And you do not have to pay a penance or pay kafara. You don't have to, because you have a severe cold, you have but the second kind of sickness is that which is chronic. It is not expected to get better, and doctors who are of righteousness and taqwa and people of understanding of our faith, who respect our faith. If your physician is not a Muslim, yet he has full respect for our deen and is familiar with our practices, if that doctor says that you cannot fast, it will jeopardize your health more and it will make you sicker. You should, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't fast. For those people who know they will stay like that for the rest of their lives, then what they have to do is, for every day in Ramadan, is it 29 this year, is it 30, they will find the amount of money that is needed to feed a needy person. From the average, it's now about $15 to feed a needy person. So 15 times 30, so that is $450. You basically take that $450 and you give it to a needy person. Now, if, and since I'm starting to talk about kafara, if the person who became better, neglected, and I hope that none among us will be negligent, to fast before the next Ramadan of the next year comes, just waited and didn't fast those days, even though she became better, he became better, then they have to pay kafara for those days that they did not fast, that they were supposed to make up. They have to give kafara, but still they have to fast them after the Ramadan of the next year will pass. So this is very important. Now about, sickness, some people ask, what if, this is a hypothetical scenario, what if the doctors told us that we will never get better, and then subhanallah, we paid the kafara, we paid the penance, and then with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who can make all doctors submit, you became better, you got healed, even though you were told you will never get better. But the doctors examine you and say, you are fine, you are healthy, we don't understand what happened. And you had already paid the kafara. The question that I receive is, shall I fast now all those days? The answer is no. Once you clear your consciousness with the kafara while in a state that you were told that you had chronic illness, you don't have to fast again. You start anew, inshallah. What about the people who are traveling? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us an allowance. There is something here. One of the companions by the name of Hamza Al-Aslami, as reported by Muslim in his Sahih, he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Ya Rasulullah, I'm a person who can endure fasting even while I'm traveling. Is there anything wrong if I fast while I'm traveling? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, no, there's nothing wrong, because this is an allowance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you take it, Allah loves for us to enjoy his allowances. But if you want to fast, there's nothing wrong if you decide to fast. On another occasion, there's another famous anecdote here whereby Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was on a journey, and all of a sudden, when they arrived at a manzil, which is a place of resting, all of a sudden he looked and saw some commotion in the shadow of a tree, and he asked what's going on. So they told him about one of the Sahabas who died, who passed away. And he asked about the reason. They told him he was fasting. So the heat and the exhaustion got him dehydrated, and, he passed away. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said his famous statement, لَيْسَ مِنَ الْبِرِّ الصِّيَامُ فِي السَّفَرِ. It is not a form of taqwa or goodness to force yourself to fast when you cannot do it. Allah gave you the allowance, so you take that allowance. Let me talk about some women's issues here, because I know that women ask these questions all the time. That while during menstruation, during the monthly cycle, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gave permission for women not to pray and not to fast. And look at the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala required women to make up the days that they missed during menstruation, later on, imagine, because this happens, every month. So it will be really difficult that every month there will be 6 or 7 days that you have to pray double, and no. So you don't make up prayers, but you make up the days you missed in fasting. You have to make them up. And people ask that, we are told that it is recommended you fast 6 days in Shawwal, which, by the way, since I mentioned this, they don't have to be consecutive days. You can spread them throughout the month of Shawwal. Can I just basically make those 6 days the same days that I missed? There are two opinions. Some scholars say that these are two different things. Others say that yes, you can, because you missed a faridah. If you want to cast it on a voluntary fast, you may do so. Others say, people ask, shall I, fast those days I missed in Ramadan before I fast the 6 other days of Shawwal? And there are also two opinions. Some say, no, you fast the Shawwal days first, then you fast. And others say, no, you fast the days you missed and then you fast, because this is fard. And this is what, because I prefer this one, because we don't know if we die in Shawwal and we did not make up the days we were supposed, which were fard, then, better to do it before you do the voluntary days of Shawwal. Now, what about, women in post, birth or postnatal discharge, which may last 40 days, which may be less than 40 days, they do not fast during the month of Ramadan for those days that they have this discharge, but they have to make it up later. Mothers that are breastfeeding, and doctors told them that if you fast, then you may jeopardize feeding of your baby. We say, not I, I'm only relating what I learned from scholars. I've said it many times, I am not a mufti, I just relate those fatwa to my brothers and sisters. They say, then you don't fast, and when you stop breastfeeding, then you make up those days. So you have to make them up. Now, the question is, and I was asked this question many a time, now, what if I don't make up those days that I really needed, and then next Ramadan, if you had a reason, some mothers, they have one pregnancy shortly after the breastfeeding, or after the the first baby is born, and then it becomes like a continuing kind of thing. And for many Ramadans, they are unable to fast the entire month of Ramadan, and then it becomes really a big burden. There are many scholars who say that if this is the case, they pay the kafara and they don't have to make up those days. Others, very few, say, no, you have to make up those days no matter how much. But I go with the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Surah Al-Hajj, وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. Allah did not intend to impose on you any form of difficulty through your practice of deen. Allah is Kareem, Allah is Rahim, Allah is loving. However, I want to say something that, some mothers, some women may understand, please don't, that they can buy out their fasting days that they have to make up by giving kafara. This is not the case. Kafara is only if you missed up those days until the next Ramadan came, but you cannot buy out by saying, well, I paid already my share. No, this is only because you did not do it before the next Ramadan came upon you. Now, some things related, and now this is again casting it on the present day situation. I know many people used to tell me in years past that, you know, I cannot wake up for suhoor. I really have to pray Fajr and then go to my work. And if I wake up for suhoor, I will not be able to tolerate that for the rest of the day. It becomes very difficult. You know, there is a hadith that is rated as muttafaq alayh, agreed upon, and it is through the authority of Anas, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Tasahharu fa inna fi as-suhuri barakah." Don't miss that pre-dawn meal, because there is barakah in that meal, and especially that we want to hydrate ourselves enough. So make sure now that you do that. Now we are at home, so we want to establish, you know, a portion of the night. Imagine that you do that, you wake up before Fajr by about, say, maybe an hour, 15 minutes, 2 hours if you want, and you can do your qiyam more to continue the taraweeh that you started the night before, and you prayed whatever 2 raka'at sets that you were able to do. Then you wake up and you continue that. Then you pray witr, because it's the last thing after Taraweeh. Then you are ready now for this pre-dawn meal. You have it together with the family. Give the duty, so to speak, to one of your children to help their father, their mother prepare the suhoor. You know, tell them, let us go and prepare it together. Let us, as we are having the suhoor meal, the sihri meal, turn on many of the programs. I have put on the Ramadan program of the Islamic Center of Southwest Ontario, many of the programs that have dhikr. You know, MAC has a beautiful program. London Muslim Mosque has a beautiful program. And, Sheikh Amin has a khatira right at Fajr. Dr. Adnan Rajih has a dars after Fajr. Then there is dhikr. Then, there's lots to choose from. You know, this year, alhamdulillah, we had more than what we had before. So don't just eat and then pray quickly and then go to sleep. One thing, health-wise, if you eat and then go to sleep, your stomach will be overburdened and you will not feel good. When you will wake up after that, you will feel really tired, and then the acidity in your stomach will become, in such a way that it will stay with you the rest of your day. Don't do that. Celebrate Ramadan, celebrate the night of Ramadan together. Maybe you want to check the trivia that I shared, or maybe I will be sharing soon, inshallah, in the newsletter of the Islamic Center. But go and talk together about something related to Ramadan, and then nothing wrong after you have done your dhikr. Try something which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do all the time, and you want to do it now this Ramadan when you are at home. This is your chance. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam every day used to pray Fajr. Then he and his companions used to stay in their musalla at the Masjid al-Nabawi, and they will do their wird. By the way, wird is something that keeps on coming and coming and coming. That's the meaning of wird. So they used to have a set of adhkar to mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, invoke his blessings, tasbih, so many things. And then after shuruq, after sunrise, by about 15 minutes, you will say, but they didn't have watches. I know they didn't have watches in those days, but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam described that when the sun rises, the distance of rumh, or an arrow, you know, just about 15 minutes in our measurements of today. Then you pray 2 raka'at called Ishraq or Duha, and then, you know, you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that beautiful experience. You thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that now your children are finding the pleasure of living Ramadan with a different flavor, a flavor that we did not have in previous years in many families, in many households. Now you have all your children, young and old, even those who are going to do what my grandmother used to tell us when we were young. You know, she used to say, you know, you are going to fast darajat al-mi'dana, which means the steps of the minaret of the masjid. And we used to be happy, you know, that I fasted till Zuhr time and now I did something great. Let your children try it. You know, my oldest granddaughter was so proud that she's been fasting for the first 2 days and she wanted to fast today. And I said, you know, take a break today. She said, can I fast half a day? I said, okay, half a day is okay. So make sure that your children enjoy fasting, because you know what, you know, to fast for children, believe, if you remember when you were, you know, it's a big achievement. You know, they feel happy, they feel great about it. So don't deprive them of that opportunity, inshallah. I have to move a little bit quicker because I want to take some of your questions. So inshallah, I am now talking about iftar. Iftar, there is a hadith reported by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, and we find it both in Bukhari and in Muslim. ما زال الناس بخير ما عجلوا الفطر. That the best practices in fasting for my ummah is to break their fast as soon as they hear the adhan. And now we have, by the way, I shared with you the programs, 2 programs I shared with you. Both of them are national programs with great speakers, alhamdulillah. And then the adhan is given at the end of the talk, the spiritual talk. Now make sure that you try to give that time for London, Ontario, because the adhan is that for Toronto. And you have the schedule that you know, I shared with you, the exact schedule. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I mentioned Dr. Mahmoud al-Saqqa, who is a professor in computer science and applied mathematics. He calculated it to the second. However, I want to say something, that at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they did not have those, you know, clocks to be exact and follow the seconds. So basically, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ ثُمَّ أَتِمُّوا الصِّيَامَ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ. Continue eating and drinking until you are able, look at this, to recognize, you know, that, you know, this is Fajr time, when you can tell the black from the white, and you can really start to see that it is not pitch dark anymore, and that's the beginning of Fajr. They used to estimate that, but they became very good at that estimation, that they would be so exact. So if somebody woke up late and you know, started to, you know, or was eating something and heard the adhan, and it's okay, finish drinking that glass of water, nothing wrong with that. Now, you know what, I still have many things. Maybe we can have part 2 next week to continue about Ramadan, because I would like to give you the chance to start asking questions. If you have questions, I'm looking at the chat here, and you know, please make sure your videos are off and muted. Maybe I should have read this. This is from the host, from the Islamic Center, from our son Ali, who is saying that please make sure that your videos are muted so that it does not interfere with what I'm saying, inshallah. Now, I have a friend that would like to know, is it permissible to take his medication at 9 a.m. when his school starts, or is it not permitted during fasting? Now, if this medication is a necessity for a certain sickness and, the person has to take it, cannot take it at suhoor time, or has to ask the doctor, then this person is sick. So this person exempt from fasting, so that person can fast on other days. And I already talked about that. So, inshallah, Ahmed, you can talk to me about it more. He said it's just for focusing. No, that if it is for focusing, I don't know what it means by that, but I will talk to you, inshallah, privately about that. Now, there are people who ask questions maybe that cannot wait until next week. They ask me, does brushing the teeth break the fast? Absolutely not, but make sure you do not swallow the toothpaste, and better, after you finish your suhoor, brush your teeth before you pray Fajr, allow it a little bit of time. But if you, have to do it, during a fasting day, it does not break the fast. However, remember, in a hadith Qudsi reported by Abu Huraira and through the authority of Abu Huraira reported by Bukhari, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لَخَلُوفُ فَمِ الصَّائِمِ أَحَبُّ إِلَى اللَّهِ مِنْ رِيحِ الْمِسْكِ أو مِنْ رَائِحَةِ الْمِسْكِ, that we may be uncomfortable detecting each other's breath during fasting, but to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the indication that we are doing it for His sake. But I repeat, brushing teeth does not break the fast. Now, a question here I'd like to ask: if my mother-in-law isn't fasting due to sickness, is she able to pay the 450 to her daughter who is in need? Yes, the answer is yes, because the mother is not obligated to support financially her daughter. So if her daughter is in need, then yes, the mother can give the 450 to her daughter. Is it okay to spit during fasting? And we've seen, many people, when they are fasting, it becomes a habit. They want to, get rid of their saliva, which before I answer this, I say that if you swallow your saliva, okay, it does not break your fast, so don't spit. And is it okay to, the question here is to spit on the floor? Absolutely not. This is not a sign of good manners. When we used to go outside of our homes in previous years, I've seen people, do it, and this is bad manners. Do not do it. However, if there is accumulated mucus from the nose or from your back throat, now that we are at home, make sure that you go and you get rid of it in the sink, but don't overdo it, because some people become really paranoid and they say, oh, this is mucus, I should, because if you are overrun by the speed of that mucus reaching into your throat, then it does not break your fast at all. People ask me also about Ventolin, the inhaler. Does it break the fast? No, it does not break the fast, because it is meant to go to the air tubules, to your lung. This is where it acts, so it does not break the fast. Now, what is the amount of kafara? Now, kafara for every day you miss of fasting is feeding of a needy person, which is $15. So the number of days you did not fast, you multiply them by 15 and you give that. This is the kafara or penance or compensation. Now, from our daughter Reem Sultan, Jazakallah khair Munir, the question of kafara of missed fasting day is one I appreciate you answering. I spoke about that in great deal of detail at the beginning. So this is going to be recorded, inshallah, and maybe I can, it will be available on my YouTube channel for everybody to review it and look at it. Now, what is considered in need these days, or how to find those who need that money the most? Where can I donate? Now, I defined, that need and poverty last week when I was talking about zakat. Now, people who are unable or who are exempt from paying zakat because they don't have that extra, these are people who are in need. These are people who you can give your zakat to. But, I'm glad the question was asked, and we have to really conclude it. Now we can continue another time. That zakat by definition, or zakat al-fitr or kafara, has to be given to Muslims. But Muslims are not withholding, helping others who are not Muslim. This is called sadaqah. You can give sadaqah to anyone you want, but for zakat al-mal and zakat al-fitr and kafara, you have to give it to Muslims to help them to establish self-sufficiency, inshallah. Now, so these days, if you are not sure, let me finish by saying these two things, and then inshallah the answers can be taken next week, inshallah. But I would like to mention two things. One is, if you do not know who is in need, you can pass it on to your masjid, to your center, to your institution, and they have lists of people who are in need, and they will give it to them on your behalf. Your conscience will become free that you've done what you have to do, and then they will do it on your behalf. And here I would like to remind you, this is the last thing I want to say, please remember that our masajid, our Islamic centers operate through what we contribute as our duty. It is not a favor that we do. Our masajid are ours. Our masajid are the houses of Allah. Man bana lillahi baytan, lillahi baytan. This is the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Islamic Center is the house of Allah. The London Masjid is the house of Allah. The Mac Center is the house of Allah. The North London Islamic Center is a masjid of Allah. Mayal is a house of Allah. The Academiyyat al-Taqwa is a house of Allah. All of these are houses of Allah. And they really need us to observe our responsibility and our duty. And the same as we got so worried, how are we going to look after our families? The same thing we have to be worried about, not worried in the negative sense, but we have to really look after our centers and our masajid and our places of worship. And especially in these days, when you really need to give as much as you can. So please, by e-transfer, by calling somebody from the center, from the masjid, and say, how can I help? I don't want to wait until we are out of our homes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all of you. MashaAllah, we had a good group of listeners today. And, as I said before, inshallah, we will continue with lessons. I still have a lot to talk about: i'tikaf, taraweeh, dua, read the Quran, the true meaning of fasting. It's not only abstinence from eating and drink, so many things. So I will send reminders about the Zoom webinar live stream, but please remember it's on Sunday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon after Zuhr prayer, inshallah. Until I see you all next week, may the Almighty take care of you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on us. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله العظيم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.